there just yet. We're going to hit a small recap, way smaller than last week, all right? For $500. No, not really. What's the big idea of the series? Who's got it? Okay, what's like the sentence? Give it to me in a sentence. Discipleship's the first word. Maddie? No. We can only become disciples by beholding Jesus. I'll take that. I was going to shorten it up even a little bit more. That discipleship begins with beholding. If you don't have that in your notes yet, if you're not taking notes, take notes. Note takers are history makers. I saw this on Instagram. I believe it to be true. Most of what you see on Instagram is not true. I believe that to be true. Discipleship begins with beholding. Beholding who? Jesus, right? Like beholding the glory of God. We learned last week, Colossians 1:15. All right, what are you doing? Oh, you're scared. You got that Judah Smith outfit on. Trying to show off the ripped upper pecs, which aren't ripped, so it's just the upper pecs. And you've got no gold chain on. Man. I'm just playing. Love you, Lord. But we learned in Colossians 1:15 last week that Jesus is the image of the invisible God. So to behold the glory of God, we look to Jesus. We behold Him. What is discipleship? It's the process of, come on, man. It's not the process of elimination. Discipleship is the process of becoming like God, not trying to act like God. Discipleship is the process of becoming like God. And last week we hit on that. We actually, the Israelites, the glory of God descended at Mount Sinai. Thunder, earthquakes, lightning, trumpets, crazy fire. And they saw the glory of God. But we learned last week that we actually, by the Spirit, the Holy Spirit living in us, we have greater access than the Israelites did. But if we don't steward the glory of God daily, we will become like the Israelites and turn to idols and worship false gods, which we do. You feel good about that? Chris, do we feel caught up from last week?
Yeah.
You feel caught up? Give me a thumbs up. All right, you feel caught up. Christopher feels caught up. That means we're good to go. All right, you ready? Who's at Matthew 13? We're there? Okay, we're not going to go there yet. Ben's so good at doing the slides. Most people would have went there, but he didn't. This last week, Tuesday? When did we build the deck, Adrian? Tuesday? We built a deck at my house. Now, if you know me, you've heard. You know. I don't know power tools. I don't know how to use, my first go at it, I had an impact drill. He's like, screw the boards in. And I sank a screw like halfway through the board because I didn't know what I was doing. It just went like halfway and I was like, still on my deck. And then he had a saw, and I was like, yeah, I don't do that. You know, and so like we built this deck. Thank God we have a deck. And it got me thinking, as I'm going through this process, if you've been around me at all, you know, like a lot of the times there's random things that just happen, and somehow I try to think like, how can I put this in a sermon? So, you know, if you give me a little box with a wig in it, I'm going to turn that into a sermon. And I'm also going to win a preaching competition. And so I started thinking, what do you need when you're building a deck, when you're building a house, if you have no clue what you're doing? First of all, you need a friend, which I had in Jonathan, thank God. Second of all, you need a blueprint, or you need a plan, right? Like if I would have been tasked, if I would have had screws, a saw, a drill, and that's it, and you just said build a deck, there wouldn't have been a deck. I'd have been clueless. I'd have been like, I'd have put 4 boards in a square and then just put stuff across it. It'd have been a jacked up deck. But you need a plan, you need a blueprint. Thankfully, I had a great friend, his name's Jonathan, and he had a plan, and then he just had a helper. That was me. He was like, hey, move this board. I was like, all right, I can do that. And I'd like move the board around, and I got sore in my back and hamstrings were tight. But we built a deck, praise God. Adrian was happy, which means I win. And we had a bonfire on one night. Praise God. It's not really a bonfire because it's small, but whatever. So in this journey of discipleship, okay, what's our blueprint? What's our plan? Because I started thinking about it, even the greatest. What was that? What was it?
That's my alarm for Julie.
Oh. I didn't know what that was. Was that a chicken? A rooster?
No.
I thought I just heard like, holy smokes, that threw me off. I thought the trumpets were blowing. I thought the Lord was coming back and said, let's go. I started thinking about, like, even if you think about the greatest man on the face of planet Earth, like, he's still flawed, so that's not a good blueprint. Like, you would never want to build something off of a flawed blueprint, am I right? You would want to build a house off of a flawed blueprint. So why, if we're trying to go through the process of discipleship, why would we look to a person who is flawed and go, that's what we want to be like? You wouldn't. The good news is when it comes to discipleship, because discipleship is the process of becoming like God, we have a blueprint, we have a plan, and his name is Jesus. The journey of discipleship is about looking at Jesus and becoming like him. We do that by what we just did, by worship. We do that by getting in the BIBLE. I think I said it last week, but we need a revival of the Bible. Like Pastor Lee Cummings says, we need to be people who get in the Word. I mean, think about this. Human beings are made in the image of God. Male and female, he created them in his image. Now, what did sin do? Sin has tainted the image of God. Sin has made it so that because of sin, the curse, we're broken. So when people look at us, they don't see God because we're broken people. But it makes me wonder, like, what do we actually gauge spiritual maturity off of? Because so many times I think we gauge spiritual maturity off of, this is just a list, am I a student leader? Am I on the worship team? Do I do 180s? And do I help in the tech? By the way, we need more tech volunteers. Yes. But we're thinking about spiritual maturity, and we're like, do I have Bible verses memorized? Like, that might be a sign of spiritual maturity, but that's not it. Maybe it's not about a title. Maybe it's about none of those things. Maybe, like, you could be the most spiritually mature person in the room and not be on the stage. And maybe the people on the stage, I'm not saying they are, could be the most spiritually mature people in the room. It's possible. That we've gauged it by the wrong thing. And so if we're made in the image of God, and our main calling in life is to be image bearers, people who reflect Jesus, I think we measure spiritual maturity by how much we reflect Jesus. Like, when people see me, do they see Jesus? Spiritual maturity is when people actually see you and get a good idea of who Jesus is. That's why when we prayed for Ava, I prayed that when people come into contact with her, I have no idea how many people Ava's going to tell the same thing to in a stinking little booth. But my prayer for Ava is that if she's on Mackinac Island, there's going to be people every day she does a relationship with, and that when they leave, when Ava's done, when she's gone from Mackinac Island, that those people would have seen Jesus because they saw Ava. That's spiritual maturity. When people see you, do they see Jesus? You see, sometimes we boil discipleship down to like making it into heaven. No. It's not about getting into heaven. Like, that's not the reason for discipleship. That will happen. It's about looking like Jesus. Discipleship impacts us here and now, because when we look like Jesus here and now, people's lives are changed for eternity. Here's the thing though, selling people on this idea of becoming like Jesus and being like Jesus is tough, because we're also meant, right? Great Commission we talked about week 1 is to go, evangelize, tell people about Jesus. It's not the easiest thing to sell people. And thankfully we have the Spirit of God who can help us, but I want you to think about this. When you tell somebody, like somebody asks you, what is it like to follow Jesus? If we were to be honest with them, we would have to say stuff like, well, first you're going to have to lay down your life completely, your dreams and your desires. You're going to have to be ready to be persecuted, because if you're actually following Christ, people are going to hate you, they're going to say things about you, and while you're at it, you will be an outcast of society, probably called a bigot because of your beliefs. Who signed up for that? Not many. Not many people are going, that sounds incredible. Unless you're an 8 on the Enneagram, then you're like, bring it on. That's why me and Jesus are Christians, or me and Zaydo are Christians. Because somebody told us that, and we were like, yes, we want it. I said, me and Jesus. Jesus was an 8. Nobody knows what the Enneagram is, it's fine. What are you? Oh, Malachi, you're like a 4? You're You're a 5. I've never met a 5 in my life until I met Malachi. Marcus? I didn't know he was a 5. I had no idea. Here's the great thing. With all of that said, right? How do we actually then, in this process of becoming like God, and then trying to get people to join us on the journey of becoming like God and engage in this process called discipleship, how do we do it? The good news is, I said the word sell earlier. We don't actually have to sell anything. We aren't salesmen for Jesus. Jesus doesn't need us as his PR team and his marketing team. Jesus doesn't need us to have a great marketing strategy. Like, all right, I got it. So Tuesday, I'm going to post on Instagram that I'm reading my Bible. Thursday, I'm going to post a video of me like in my room. It's going to be a reel, and I'm going to be worshiping, and it's going to have little things pop up, and people are going to be like, wow, they're a Christian. And then at the end of my little caption, I'm going to be like, do you want to know Jesus? DM me. Like, we don't need to do that. You can do that if you want. We don't have to. No, why? What do we need to do? We just have to point people to the beauty of Jesus. We just simply have to point people to Jesus. We have to let them behold something that's worth it. The only way we're going to get people to follow the same Jesus that we're following is if they see our lives and go, why wouldn't I want to live like that? Like, they might not know that we're persecuted. They might not know that we've had to lay down dreams and desires and all of these things. But we're going to be people who are full of joy, who look like Jesus. We just need to teach people to be fascinated with Jesus. Matthew 13:44. I want to read this. I love this story that Jesus tells. He's talking about the kingdom, and he says this: the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, which a man found and covered up. Then in his joy, he goes and sells all that he has and buys the field. Circle, underline, highlight, screenshot on your YouVersion Bible app, and then use the little edit pen and highlight in his joy. Because here's what I want to talk about tonight. I want to talk about how do we become people who are willing to, in full joy, lay everything down and run after Jesus. How do we become like that, man? Because the point of this story is not this idea that we could actually buy our way into the kingdom, right? Because some people could be like, he goes and sells all that he has and he bought his salvation. We can't buy our salvation. Our salvation, you can't do anything to earn it. No, the purpose of this is this simply: that when you actually have a revelation of the beauty of Jesus, nothing else matters. No money, no title, no position, no popularity, no plans, no desires. You are willing to give up everything for the kingdom. The problem is that most of us haven't had that revelation yet. That if we were honest, we'd be willing to give up this and this, but God don't touch that. How do we become people who, in full joy, are willing to give up everything to go after it? How do we get to that place? We become fascinated by his beauty. I'm telling you tonight, if you can get a revelation of the beauty of Jesus. Some people in this room, and you're like, why are we using the word beautiful in Jesus? That seems weird. We're going to talk about it. We become fascinated with his beauty. And you know what that takes? It takes intentionality. You know the way relationships are supposed to work is that the longer you're with somebody, the more fascinated you become by them. The problem is that there's this idea that the world's trying to sell us on, that there's an expiration date on fascination, and when it's done, you just get rid of it. Like, I don't really like them anymore, so see ya. That's demonic, it's unbiblical. You see, I'm more fascinated with Adrian today than I was a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. We've been married for 5 years, almost 6, right? I'm more fascinated with her than I was 6 years ago when we were dating and I was a weirdo and stayed up on the phone with her until 3 a.m. You're just like, hey, what's up? Nothing. 2 hours later, what are you doing? Nothing. What are you doing? Same thing I was doing earlier. Then you fall asleep, the phone's on, phone dies. That's weird. Yeah. I don't go into the next bedroom and call Adrian anymore. I'm like, hey. And we don't just lay there in bed staring at each other till 3 a.m. Like, hey, what you doing? Nothing. Same thing I was doing earlier. Yeah, me too. Like, I'm more fascinated with her today than I was 5 years ago, but it looks different. I'm not staying up with her till 3 in the morning. You want to get to a place in your life where you're so fascinated with Jesus that you're willing to give up everything in joy for the kingdom. I'm telling you, become fascinated. It's going to take effort. It's going to take intentionality. And it definitely doesn't mean you're perfect. But I want to show you it's a heart posture. It's a heart posture that we have to have. It's more about a posture than perfection. We're going to see that in an Old Testament character who you all know, and his name is?
Jesus.
I've literally failed as a youth pastor. I said that we're going to look at an Old Testament character, and somebody said Jesus. Then somebody said Paul. I'm done. I'm literally, if Pastor Steve wasn't on vacation, I would be resigning tomorrow and be working at Lowe's by next week. No, it's King David. It's King David. Tonight's chalked. Tonight's chalked. When I say King David, can somebody just throw out a few words you think of when you think of King David? King, heart, Psalms, shepherd, Goliath, slingshot, adulterer. So he's right there. When I think of King David, here's some words I think of, right? King, giant slayer, royalty, God's chosen. But I think of also overlooked, cruel, scared, depressed, insecure, adulterer, and murderer. I think of all those things. He was all of those things. Yet here's what's crazy about David, right? This is the dude that should have been at battle, commits adultery, sleeps with the girl, then immediately kills the dude. Kills somebody. This is King David. And in 1 Samuel, he's described as this, 1 Samuel 13:14, that David was a man after God's own heart. So let's back that up. David was a dude who should have been at battle, was not fulfilling his calling, went and slept with the girl that he saw on a roof, and then killed a guy. That's King David, and he's a man after God's own heart. How was David both a murderer and madly in love with God? How was it that he was both an adulterer and astonished with the Lord? How was it that he was both frail but faithful and scared but secure? Let me tell you this, it was his heart posture. David was not perfect. He definitely not perfect. But he had a heart posture that was pure. What was that heart posture? We've talked about it before. I want you to listen to this. I hope tonight, if anything, you walk out of this room adopting this as your heart posture, and it's Psalm 27:4. I love this. One thing I have asked of the Lord that I will seek after, that I might dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. One thing I've asked, that one thing that I will seek after, that I might dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. Can I remind you that David was called to be a shepherd? David was called to be a king. That means he has other responsibilities. Because some people in the room are like, that was King David. He was just called to sit in the temple all day and bask in the presence of God. No, he was called to lead people. He was called to go to war. But he said, over my calling, over the plans that I have, over my responsibilities, the one thing that I've asked of the Lord that I will seek after, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze upon the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. If David could be this, he could be summed up in one word. You know what it would be? He was fascinated. He was fascinated with the beauty of the Lord. The first thing that he wanted, and the one thing he would have been okay doing for the rest of his life, would have been to be in the presence of God, staring at the beauty of the Lord. That's the one thing. Is that your one thing tonight? Listen, I've got good news for you tonight. That you can be broken, you can be jacked up, you can be messed up. You could have came to youth group right after you killed the dude and committed adultery. I hope nobody did that. But you could. And if you have the posture of David, that God will use you and shape you and mold you to look like Jesus. And just a disclaimer, if you did any of those things, come tell us, we'll call the cops. You'll go to prison, but there are a ton of guys who do ministry to people in prison.
That's right.
Hallelujah. I don't think anybody's here murdering anybody. You see, humans, we're drawn to beauty. King David says that he wants to look at the beauty of God all the days of his life. Humans are drawn to beauty. It's something we long for. It's something we're hungry for. I mean, let's be honest. I've never once talked to anybody, like any of my friends. Okay, I'm just going to talk for me personally. I've never talked to any of my friends that are dudes, that are single, and been like, so what are you looking for in a girl? Not one time have they ever said, I'm looking for a butt ugly girl. Just never said that. I've never been like listening to a girl talk, not that I've asked many, but I've heard conversations and been like, and they've just heard one go like, yeah, actually, I want a really ugly dude. I've never heard it. Our guy Nathan Finocchio, if they asked you, somebody asked him, they asked him about the gift of singleness. He says, I've never seen a hot girl with the gift of singleness. Why? Because there are guys lining up to date her. Why? Because she's beautiful. Because she's beautiful. Humans are drawn to beauty. If you are drawn and attracted to ugly people, we'll pray for you after service. Because there is a wire loose. You got a check engine light on, and we will help you and we will pray. But we are drawn to beauty. We're drawn to beauty. The problem is that the world offers us so many counterfeits of what's beautiful. The world offers us so many counterfeits. Marriage is beautiful, yet culture says, here's porn, here's one night stand, here's just go and test drive the car before you buy it. That's what culture says, and it's a counterfeit. It says you can get pleasure without commitment and outside of covenant. But listen, that is not from God, and that's not how He designed it. It's a counterfeit. Joy is from God, yet culture says, here's X, Y, and Z thing that'll make you happy. You need to have money, you need to have this many Instagram followers and be popular on TikTok, and you will be happy. The truth is, that's a counterfeit. Happiness is a counterfeit if it doesn't come from a root being found in the joy of the Lord. Now you can chase after happiness, never have joy, and be empty and broken. Why? Because it's a counterfeit. What about like the mission of God, that we are called to be a part of something bigger than us, to be a part of telling people about Jesus? Yet culture, even church culture, here's what we'll do. It can get us worried about us. What am I called to? I don't know if I'm called to ministry or if I'm called to the marketplace. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. Like, if I'm supposed to go to college, or if I'm supposed to do this. Like, we can get so infatuated with thinking about our own beauty. And can I tell you that sometimes in the name of what am I called to do, we start getting more concerned with our beauty than His. That we look way more at ourselves than we do at Him. And here's what I love, is that even though we have this desire, we have this hunger, this appetite after things that are beautiful, God never condemns our appetite. Here's what He always does. He says, take that appetite that you have for all of those things and redirect them. I love this, Isaiah 55, right? So this is the Lord, and He's talking about how this idea of covenant and how God has something better for us. And this is what Isaiah 55:2 says. It says, why do you spend your money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which does not satisfy? Listen diligently to me, and eat what is good, and delight yourselves in rich food. This is like an analogy. The Lord's saying, why? Like, if I've got a stinking ribeye steak prepared for you, why are you going to McDonald's for that stinking McRib? Like, it's a counterfeit. I have what's best for you. Do not, like, you're hungry. Just because you're hungry, don't eat the McRib. I've got a steak prepared for you. We have to get hungry after the right things. How do we do that? You become fascinated. If you become fascinated with Jesus, I promise you, you will hunger after the right things. I promise you. Why? Because fascination does something in you. It does something for you. It did something for David, and it'll do something for you. David said, David was hungry after that. He was a man after God's own heart. The one thing that he wanted was the Lord, to gaze upon His beauty. I'm sure he made plenty of mistakes. David was not a perfect man, but he had the right heart posture. So I want to hit real quick 3 things that fascination will do. The first one is this: fascination with Jesus will cause us to reorient our lives. I don't know why that word sounds weird to me right now. Reorient. Is that right, Malachi? I know a couple of weeks ago we touched on this thing about a dating relationship and how it changes things. And if you're fascinated with a girl, you do crazy things like go to 2 proms back to back, buy the same girl dinner twice. Did you buy 2 separate tuxes? Who went to 2 proms? Anybody? Did you buy 2 tuxes? 2 different ties. Praise God. 2 dresses? Bless our Lord. Fascination will do something to you. Fascination will cause things to shift. And we're going to talk about what will it do. I want to think about, like, if that's a dating relationship, what if we become fascinated with the person of Jesus? What will that cause to shift in us? I want to highlight a couple. First, it's going to cause you to reorient your schedule. When you become fascinated with Jesus, you'll reorient your schedule so that he's the priority. That beholding him with people, like, listen, you could do a million things on a Sunday night, but y'all are here. Some of you have gotten a hold of it, and you're like, I need to be with God's people, lifting up the name of Jesus. You'll reorient so you can make time for him daily. Like, man, I used to play video games every night from, like, I got done with dinner, and I would just play video games until my eyelids fell off, and I had to go to sleep, or my parents shut off the Wi-Fi. I've been playing with some people in this room whose parents shut off the Wi-Fi, and all of a sudden they're just like we're in the middle of a war zone, we're definitely top 15, and Micah, I didn't mean to say your name, all of a sudden just, his character freezes, and we're like, where's Micah? And like, half the time he'd be yelling at his cousin, just having like a little cat fight in his basement with his cousin, but then the other half, he's like, he texts me, like, yeah, sorry dude, my mom's turned off the Wi-Fi. Top 15 situation, it's horrible. Some of us will reorient our schedule though, so we're saying, hey, I might not get to video games tonight because I have to first spend time with Jesus. You'll reorient your schedule so you can serve, so you can actually be to church a little bit early. Some of you will wake up, where's Ari Shabani? He might walk in late sometimes, but I see this dude almost every Sunday morning. What time do you get here? 9:35? And you know what he does? He stands behind the table just like this with an iPad. He just stares at the doors. Yeah, and he'll be like, hey, what's their name? Like, Ari, they've been coming here for 6 years and they're your kid's teacher. And he's like, what was her name? It's Mary Shabani. Ari is your mom. Right? You'll reorient your schedule so you can get somewhere and serve God's people. You'll get to the place, listen, when you become fascinated, you'll get to the place where you reorient so everything else takes second. And this is also my second thing, priority. Right? When you're fascinated, what you consider important will drastically shift. For me, it was sports. I was addicted to baseball. I spent all my time playing baseball. If I wasn't on the baseball field, I was watching baseball. If I wasn't watching baseball, I was playing MLB The Show on my PlayStation. Like, that's just what I did all the time. I give my life to Jesus. I get a glimpse of his beauty, and I go like, all right. Things are going to change. Hey, coach, I got church at 6:30 on Wednesday, so if we're not done by 6:15, I'm out of here. All right? Okay. Like, I literally didn't care. If he was like, well, you're going to be on the bench, I'd be like, all right, I'm going to church. I was good, so I played. I tell that to everybody. If you're good, you're going to play. I'll hold in my second thought. It's about if you're not good. At least you're having fun, right? For you, it might be something different. It might be video games. Like, maybe you are like, man, my top priorities. Like, I would challenge everybody in this room, like, go home and write down, what are your top 10 priorities? And be honest with them. You're like, how do I determine what my priorities are? I don't know. What do you think about? What do you spend time on? Like, what do you spend time doing? And just write those out. And see where time with Jesus falls on that. And just be really honest. And then ask yourself the question, if Jesus is not on that top 10 list, or if he's towards the bottom, be like, what do I need to change around? What do I need to shift? Maybe it's YouTube, maybe it's video games, maybe it's TV, maybe it's your friends. Maybe you do nothing but hang out with your friends, and Jesus is saying, hello, hang out with me. He'll shift our priorities. What about relationships? I'm talking about all relationships, not just dating relationships, not just like, ooh, boyfriend, girlfriend, middle school relationships. I'm talking about all relationships. Well, let's hit on dating relationships. Fascination with Jesus will cause you to focus on him more than each other. Praise it. Most relationship problems, especially when you're in high school, I'm like, quit thinking about each other so much. I don't know, you sound obsessed. Like, unhealthily obsessed. I wasn't sure, like, I didn't ask her permission to eat pizza rolls, and I knew, like, we were going to dinner next week, and so I was like, crap, man, if I eat pizza rolls, she might get mad at me, and
And if she gets mad at me, then I'm gonna have to be on the phone with her till like midnight tonight talking to her. And then I won't get my homework done. Then I gotta do my homework all night so that way I can spend some time with Jesus, but I'm just gonna be so tired. And then I'll probably have to skip church on Sunday. Like, okay, what's wrong with you? You're obsessed with each other. And you need to break up and go to counseling. Like, I'm telling you, fascination with Jesus would just get you to fix your eyes on him, and you guys would like talk, and you'll be like, you encountering God? Yeah. You encountering God? Yeah. Cool. And you just keep going with your life, and then like, it'll progress, and then at some point you'll be like, we gonna get married? You good? Yeah. Then you get to go through that whole process. What about if they're not? Like, what if it's not a dating relationship? Well, I'll tell you this, fascination with Jesus will cause you to have the right people around you. Some people are like, have the wrong people. I'm telling you, if you're constantly wondering, why am I involved with drama with friends? Why am I constantly feeling like discouraged, like I don't want to go to church? Why am I feeling like I have no interest in the things of God? I would probably say it's because you've got the wrong people around you. In fascination with Jesus, fix your eyes on Jesus. Surround yourself with the right people. When you're going through stuff, they can pray for you and pray with you. When you're feeling discouraged, they can encourage you. When you're about to skip church, they'll pick you up. I know somebody in the room had to pick somebody up tonight. Proud of you. They know who they are. We talked about it last night. What will fascination do? It'll cause you to shift your finances. You're like, why? Does that really apply to me? Absolutely. Who in here has a job? Who in here needs a job? You guys raise your hand, because my next question was, who wants money? And everybody would like. Listen, fascination with Jesus will cause you to ask questions about what you spend your money on. Like, will you obey Jesus in giving your first fruits? When we go to small groups, that's where we give in JSM. Do you, like, if you make $1 a week, do you give 10 cents to Jesus? You're like, well, why would I give 10 cents to Jesus? Because it's about principle. It's about starting to practice that. Will you live with the other 90% in open hand? It's something just personally, Adrian and I have challenged ourselves on this year. It's like, how can we be more generous? How can we give away more? We were praying about Forward. Who knows what Forward is? Our main church does it, right? It's like the big campaign we do. Adrian is so full of faith. And there was this number, it was like medical debt from her surgery and this stuff. And it totaled about, it was like $4,000. And we were praying about Forward. And I was like, how much do you think we should give? We were praying. And she's like, we got $4,000 of debt. I think we should give $4,000. I was like, whoa! Time out. We got to talk about that. Right? And so our lives have been like, how can we live more generously? Are you living generously? Do you live with your hand open? Like, God, I only have $10, but that's like 5 chicken nuggets. You see somebody at the gas station, that's $1.5 gallons of gas. Do you live a generous life? Do you spend your money on things that move the mission of God forward, or do you only spend them on you? Those are just questions to ask. Here's the second thing. Fascination with Jesus, it'll fill us with that which satisfies. You're like, what does that truly mean? Let me tell you. Going back to that passage in Isaiah, right? Do I need to reread it? No, sure I will. Why do you spend your money for that which is not bread and your labor for that which does not satisfy? Can I tell you, when we're fascinated with Jesus, we will start to seek after, hunger after things that actually satisfy. How often do we settle for something that we think is good, but it's not God? You know, if all you did was eat, which some of you do this, I don't know how you're functioning. If all you did was eat candy bars, Sour Patch Kids, chips, crackers with that nuclear cheese and a cheese whiz in a bottle, which, by the way, there was a reel I sent Xander. Did you know that if you like center a Ritz on top of it, like it looked like it fit on top of it, right? You can fit the Ritz, and then you push the button, it perfectly fills the cracker cheese. I know, some of you just had a revelation tonight. Try it. But if all you did was eat that, and you ate junk food, which, I'm gonna be honest, Malcolm Morrow is an anomaly in life. Every single day he comes into the office, he goes into Mindy's office, Pastor Mindy, he grabs like a Reese's, a Nutri-Grain bar, a bag of chips, and that's his lunch every single day. We're like, Malcolm, like, you feel okay? He's like, no, I mean, yeah, I feel fine. Kid doesn't eat normal food. But he's alive. Like if all you did was eat junky food, your health would not probably be in a very good place. Now the solution to that is not to quit eating food. Then you would die. If you're like, well, I'm eating the wrong thing, I might as well just quit eating it. No, you still have to eat something. You just have to eat the right food. You have to eat food that has nutrients. You have to eat food that's good for you. You have to eat food that nourishes your body. Can I tell you that fascination with Jesus will begin to have you feeling bad when you eat the wrong thing, and it will motivate you to change. I know some people in this room have experienced the beauty of Jesus. Why? Because they joined this thing that we have, that most of you have heard of, called the Freedom Group. They realized that they had an appetite for something that wasn't right. That they had a hunger for something that was a counterfeit. They said, I want change. They saw the beauty of Jesus and they thought that there's more, there's something better. And so they joined a Freedom Group, and they are going to be rewarded for that. They're going through the process of becoming like Jesus. Fascination with Jesus will cause you to start feeling bad when you waste all of your time on social media scrolling, but you never spend any time with Jesus on a given day. Listen, fascination will get you longing for the thing that actually fills you. Then it's up to you whether or not you're going to eat it. Fascination will be the thing that causes you to feel the sense that I felt like 6 months ago when I was like, I am sick and tired of feeling unhealthy, fat, like, man, like when your old stomach gets in the way of sticking tying your shoes, I was like, okay, I got a problem. And so I became fascinated with going to the gym. I became fascinated with the process of working out. I got in my mind that it honors God when I honor Him with my temple, when I honor Him with my body. So I became fascinated with the process. Now you find me like singing Northside on a Saturday, pushing the sled around and farmer walking. No, like I'd rather be eating a stick of Ritz crackers and Cheese Whiz. But I'm there. Why? Because I'm fascinated with it. I felt like crap and I wanted to change. Fascination with Jesus will have you more satisfied than you've ever been before, simply because you redirect your appetite to hunger after things that satisfy. Third and final thing, worship team, come on up. Fascination with Jesus will cause us to care about His story and not ours. Fascination with Jesus will cause us to care about His story, not ours. Earlier I talked about how sometimes we, especially if you're a part of a church, you start to hear the word calling and future and all these things, and you start to think so much about yourself. But what we do is we turn our eyes on our own, we start getting concerned with our beauty, not His, and we start to think so inwardly. And I don't think this is a surprise, but did you know this, that we live in a pretty selfish culture? That a lot of what's going on around us, a lot of what people tell you is to think all about you. I want to show you how fascination with Jesus will cause us to start asking the right questions. Psalm 2. Go turn to Psalm 2 if you have your Bible. I shared this with the leaders today and I love this. We're going to read one verse out of Psalm 2 and then we're going to respond. We're going to jump in. Psalm 2. This is the writer of Psalm. Psalm 2 is a messianic psalm. It's a prophetic psalm all about the coming Messiah, right? Psalm 2 is before Jesus ever walked the earth. And this is what God says to Jesus about Jesus. And you're like, what is that? How does that even work? You're about to figure it out. Psalm 2 says this, verse 8, ask of me, this is God talking, saying future Jesus. Ask of me and I will make the nations your heritage. That word heritage, a lot of ways people translate it inheritance. And I will make the nations your inheritance. Highlight and underline that. And the ends of the earth your possession. Ask of me and I will make the nations your heritage. And the ends of the earth your possession. Jesus has promised something. What has Jesus promised? He's promised the nations. Jesus has promised every single person that walks the face of planet Earth, every person. And will that happen? Will everybody come to know Jesus? No, we know the free will tells us that that won't happen, that there will be people who hear of Jesus but deny His salvation and the grace that He extends. But I want you to think about this. Some people simply weren't able to know about Jesus not because they didn't want to, but because they weren't ever told. There's people walking around today that don't know about Jesus. Did you know that the United States has more missionaries coming to it than being sent? That there are people that literally don't have they maybe have heard the name Jesus, but they have no concept of who he is. They've never had the opportunity to accept him as their Lord and Savior. I want you to think about this. Jesus' inheritance is people, it's souls. That's what he gave his life for. He died on a cross for you and me. Why? Because we are a soul. We are part of that inheritance. Yet Jesus still has not received his full inheritance. I want you to think about this with me. This wrecks me. Because sometimes I think about well, what am I going to do in 10 years, 15 years? How am I going to set myself up for what God has next as far as family and live through all this stuff? If it's God's will that I took over Journey Church, what am I doing right now to set myself up so that would be the best? Man, listen, what if we quit thinking so much about our calling? What if we quit thinking so much about our destiny? What if we quit thinking so much about our future? And what if we just became fascinated with seeing Jesus receive his inheritance that he died for? Listen, I promise you this is worth coming to that alone. If you're in this room and you've been thinking about the future, you've been thinking about your future, what you're called to, what God has planned for you, this will free you tonight. I promise you that if you would commit to his story, he'll take care of yours. I promise you, if you would just commit to his story, being a part of what God's doing and bringing the inheritance to Jesus who died for it, I promise you, if you commit to his story, he'll take care of yours. Listen, I'm not saying don't plan and don't think. When your parents are hey, what are you thinking next year? Be I don't know. I mean, you can say it's in God's hands, but then you might have to follow up. But here's what I'm saying. What if we became fascinated with Jesus and him receiving his reward? What if we were just broken at the fact that there's people that we come in contact with every single day that do not know Jesus because nobody's properly told them about Jesus? What if we became heartbroken about the fact that there's people around the world who've never heard the name of Jesus? What if we became broken with the fact that we have family members who Jesus died for who don't yet know him? What if we decided that whether we're going to college for engineering, whether we're going to go to college to be a rocket scientist, medic-keeper, whether we're going to be a mechanic, a teacher, a pastor, a missionary, a florist, a guitarist, it doesn't matter. What if we just committed to where we go, we're going to help Jesus receive his reward? That when Jacob is at Western, he's like, I want to see Jesus receive his inheritance at Western. That when you're at Central next year, Battle Creek Central, or tomorrow, you're like, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but this is what I do know, is that I'm committed to seeing Jesus receive his inheritance. That when I go to school, when I go to my job, I don't know, I don't have a lot planned out, but what I do have planned out is that my goal is to see Jesus receive his reward. Listen, tonight, this is what I'm looking for. People who are saying this, Jesus, I'm willing to give up everything for your story. I'm willing to give up my life for your glory. That's what we sang about just 40 minutes ago. And we're about to sing it again. I'm looking for people who are saying, Jesus, I'm going to look at your beauty. I'm going to step into your story. And I'm not doing it for myself. I'm not doing it for a title. I'm not doing it for a position. I'm not doing anything that I can gain. I'm doing it all for your glory. Would you guys stand? Just close your eyes. And if you're in this room and you're saying tonight, I'm going to commit to seeing Jesus receive his inheritance. I'm going to commit to seeing Jesus receive the very thing that he died for, which is people. That it doesn't matter if I'm at college, if I'm in high school, if I'm at my job, or if I'm at my family, if I'm with my friends. My goal is going to be that I would just be a part of what God's doing, that I would be obedient to him. That I would just say yes. That God, you can put me anywhere. I'll serve anywhere. I just want to see people know him. If you're saying, yeah, that's me. I want to be that person. I want to be a person who's a part of the story that he's writing right now that's going to go down for all of human history as the greatest story ever told. If you're saying, I'm in on that, I want to see Jesus receive his inheritance, would you just lift both your hands? If that's you, you're saying, I want to see Jesus receive the thing that he died for. In just a minute, the worship team's going to begin singing. And I want you just to get alone, and I want those to not just be words that you sing, I want those to be a declaration of your heart. That God, you can put me anywhere. Just put your glory in me. That God, I'll serve anywhere. Just let me see your beauty. That the one thing that I long for, the one thing that I seek after is to gaze upon your beauty, Jesus. It doesn't matter where I'm at, just let me see your beauty. Let me become fascinated with you, because when I'm fascinated with you, I'll reorient my life. That God, when I'm fascinated with you, I'll change how I live. God, when I'm fascinated with you, I'll hunger for the right things. God, when I'm fascinated with you, I'll quit thinking so much about me and all about you. So Jesus, would you just do that in us tonight? Would you make these more than words? Would you make these more than words?